today we have special guests. We have Bob Meyer with EMS. We have John Elwood, Chief Mark Denning, and Officer Garrett Franz. I asked them to come today to maybe speak about some of the things they're dealing with on a local level. I've seen them in action. We have meetings with them, with City Council. Get to work with them a lot in regards to keeping their departments updated with equipment and personnel and different things they need to go out and reach out to help the community and public safety and everything. But I'm very proud of these gentlemen and their other staff that are here today. I think they do a wonderful job. We're only as strong as the good people that work in these departments, and they do a lot for the community. You don't see it a lot, but last night, for example, I was out looking at some storm damage, and many of these people were out driving to different places in the community, lights flashing, sirens going, helping people that may be needed. We were out of power. A lot of the time was out of power. And, you see them guys out there working to help people and get through the situation. Some of them work many hours helping people. You don't see that, but they do. I know they do. They're out there each and every day doing that for our community. So I don't know who wants to speak first, but sounds like Chief Mark Denning. I nominated him. Please give a warm Rotary welcome to Chief Mark Denning. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I guess we survived the storms last night. We made it through with minor damage, minimal amount of damage, I guess. I think our biggest issue we had was we had a large tree come down on Arthur Street, pulled down some wires and poles, and they're just now in the process of removing this large tree from the roadway, so that should be opened up by this end of this afternoon, I would say by 3 o'clock, I would think. So, but lots of tree limbs, lots of wires were down, so, but we made it through it without any injuries. We did have a structure fire during this mess last night, so that was very minimal amount of damage to the home, so we lucked out. Couple things as far as on our local level here for the police department. Our calls for service has kind of been down this year. We're about 200 down on our calls for service. A lot of that is due to the COVID. When the COVID started, we took extra precaution and we eliminated as much contact as possible with the public. We weren't going door to door, handling some village ordinance issues and things like that, so we could cut ties to trying to stay away from people and eliminate the contact. We went back to our normal operations probably about the 1st of June, and so we're only about 200 down. I'd say by the end of the year, we're probably going to be about even of what our calls for service volume was last year at the end of the year. So we're still seeing some drug issues here in town that we're dealing with. We've been working with the multi-area narcotics task force, so we are dealing with some drug issues here. We still have, we're seeing a lot of methamphetamine. The heroin is kind of taking a slide a little bit. Meth has picked back up. That's usually what the drug culture is. One comes in, one goes out, and one comes back, and the other goes out. So we're working on some issues like that. And speaking of the drug issues, there's a Senate bill that's out there. It's called Senate Bill 3, and this is going to create problems for law enforcement and our communities as a whole. They're trying to pass making some drug trafficking offenses and possession of drugs, which include heroin, LSD, cocaine, it was heroin, LSD, cocaine, and some of our major drugs. They're going to make them possession charges for low-level F5s. They're looking to implement those and make them misdemeanor possessions, and they're trying to push for no jail time on those offenses and a lot of rehab or intervention in lieu of. The problem that we're going to see with that, that's just going to increase our offenders. They're going to be able to traffic more in drugs because of the lesser offense they're going to get or lesser of punishment they're going to get for these offenses. But what's going to come back to is, in the bill, there is no money that's coming back to our communities, the state of Ohio, or to our counties, that's going to help pay for the cost of the rehabilitation, the intervention in lieu of, or their jail costs, if they have to go to jail for some reason. So that expense is going to come back on us, that we're going to have to pay for. We're not getting any funding from the state of Ohio. So I would encourage you to reach out to our lawmakers and express your concern about that, because it's going to increase our crime rate. You'll see more thefts, we're going to see more overdoses, and death related to those overdoses. The one thing I wanted to talk about, because I'm getting complaints, we haven't seen them, but we're hearing about complaints involving the golf carts, the UTVs. Some of the complaints that we've received about the golf carts is people are telling us they're seeing kids, children driving these golf carts on the streets. We have not seen that or come across that yet, but we're hearing about this. They're telling us that this is happening. So just to let you guys know, they do have to have, if you have a golf cart, they do have to have a valid driver's license to operate those on the streets. And we're hearing about kids being on them, and I believe they will, if they're small enough, I believe they would have to be in an infant seat or a car seat if they're under that requirement. The other thing that we're hearing about is, we've heard them being down at the ballpark, is the razors or the kind of look like a sand dune type vehicle. Those are not permitted on the roadway. Those do not fall under the village ordinance. They're made to go faster than 35 miles an hour. We're seeing them with slow-moving vehicle signs on those, I guess, is what we're being told. And that does not qualify you to operate that vehicle on the roadway with a slow-moving vehicle sign. Slow-moving vehicle sign is for the purpose of agriculture. So basically, if you're going from one field to another field or hauling agricultural equipment with them, that's where the slow-moving vehicle sign comes in for those types of vehicles. So those are not allowed on the roadway. Basically, they're not allowed on the roadway anything that's over a 35 mile an hour speed zone. So we get, some of the questions that we get is if you live outside the village and want to get your golf cart or UTV to be able to drive inside the village, you can do that, but the problem that you have is, as I tell folks, is how do you get it from your place to the village, all right? Because you cannot drive it. The only way you can do it is to trailer it in or pull it in somehow. It does not give you the legal right to operate outside the village of Hicksville. And then, as of you know, some of you may not know, as of July 1st of 2020, you're no longer required a front license plate. So, some people were still getting 2 license plates when they went picked up, but they said they were giving out the 2 because they had an overstock of license plates, so they were just doing it to get rid of them. But, so now you're only required 1, so all of us can now put those Ohio State license plates on the front of our vehicle. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Do you see that manufacturer's map or just the use of it?
We're seeing the use of it more than the manufacturing. There's still some out there that's manufacturing. We haven't seen it here in Hicksville for a while now, but there are still some people out here still manufacturing. So, Any other questions? Yes?
Didn't we have that same kind of bill a couple of years ago about decriminalizing some of the lower level felonies? Can we just go through this or not? My mistake.
I know they're still trying to decriminalize marijuana, but, I mean, they've been pushing for quite a few years now to decriminalize drugs, period. So, any other?
What are they doing? Is it because of jail space?
Some of it is, yeah, some of it is they're trying to reduce prison population and your jail space. That's some of the reason, yes. You know, some of the offenders that we see, these are not first-time offenders, okay? Our drug problem is repeat offenders, okay? And most of these offenders have been through some type of rehabilitation through the court system. They've been offered this. They've been to the search program, the things to help them, to put them back into society, and they choose not to help themselves, okay? So it's not your, you know, I have no problem with a first-time offender if you want to rehabilitate them and get them back, put them back into society and get them under good graces and help their addiction. Because it's an addiction and it's hard to fight. It's a disease, okay? If you talk to alcoholics, you talk to anybody that's got a drug, and if they're truly honest with you, it's a disease. They fight it every single day not to use. But some of these people just plain choose not to help themselves. You know, you can only get the help if you want to help yourself.
Another question. Seeing on the news, of course, quite a bit of you know, protests and angst against police. Are you feeling that or seeing that here locally?
We have not seen that here. I think our community here, we're a small community. Everybody that I've talked to, they all support our local level law enforcement, sheriff's office, police department, Defiance Police Department. I mean, I have not seen that here in Northwest Ohio. We had a group that wanted to do a protest, and their idea was going to be peaceful. They got, when all this first started, and they backed out at the last minute because there was a lot of rumors flying around, what was going to take place. And they said, that's not what we're here for. We're not going to put ourselves or anybody else in that position to have to deal with that. So they chose to back out, which I thought that was very nice. I mean, you know, they may use good common sense. Anything else? Well, thank you for having us here today. We appreciate it. It was a very good lunch. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Bob Meyer with the EMS department talking about some of the things that they're dealing with here at a local level.
Also, we appreciate you inviting us here. I'm going to do a double duty for you. I'm going to give you a little bit on the fire end towards the tail end too, because our fire chief wasn't able to make it. So if I screw any of the fire stuff up, blame it on him. Okay. As far as start out on EMS a little bit, I'm going to tell you some of the natures of the calls that we have. We deal with breathing issues, standby at fires, sick person, unresponsive, CPR runs, suicide, pain problems, motor vehicle accidents, medical alarm seizures, pregnancies, lift assist on welfare checks. We've had drownings, we've had chest pain, dog bites, diabetic problems, strokes, people passed out, and overdoses. So some of the natures of the calls that we do respond on here in town. And of all of those that I have talked about, we have responded to all of those. That's just not a general list. Those are actual runs that we have done. As far as on EMS, some of the runs for the total runs for the month, starting in January, we had 49 runs that month. February showed 46, March showed 30 runs, April showed 27 runs, May had 33, June had 46, and July had 49 of this year so far. A little bit of EMS and fire runs. we gave you the EMS runs. I'll run through some of the fire runs. So for the month of January, they had 11 fire runs that they answered. February, they showed 12. March was 12. April was 11 runs. May 15 runs. June had 12. And July had 17. And they've had 5 runs so far in August. So that's a little bit on EMS. Nothing ever too exciting for us, for most people out there. I do remind people, you know, we do have the HIPAA laws, so it's a lot of times, those are coming into play a lot of times. People ask us, you know, well, what went on here, what went on there, due to the HIPAA laws. They're becoming more and more. You go to the dentist office, you go to the chiropractor's office, everybody's signing all their forms for HIPAA laws. We also have the same HIPAA laws that we must follow too. And you're seeing that everywhere in most everything. Okay, I'm going to jump a little bit to the specifically on fire. Some of the trucks and vehicles we have, I had them type up a little cheat list for me, so once again I'll read off of that too. Our primary engine, which is Unit 504, was purchased in 2002. It is now 18 years old, so that's our main fire truck that we have. Our secondary engine is 503. It was purchased in 1991. It is now 29 years old. Our tanker truck, which is number 506, it's a 2,000-gallon water hauling tanker. It was purchased in 1997 and is now 23 years old. Our SWAT 511 is purchased in 2008. It's now 12 years old. Our Squad 510, it was a 1986 box. It had a 2001 chassis change on it. We currently, and it is parked outside that you guys can check out after your meeting's over, we were able to purchase a brand new ambulance for $202,000, and it's a 2020. And then just about a week ago, we received information that we received a grant for about $396.5, and it will be for a 3,000-gallon tanker. So that will be the fire department's latest new purchase. Now that tanker, it will probably take, I'm going to estimate about a year before we'll see it. We're having companies right now that caught wind that we received a grant for this new tanker truck, and there are several calls that they want to purchase the rights to be able to build the tanker truck for us. So right now we had a fire meeting last night, and there's a committee set up that they will choose what type of a tanker truck they want to get, and what company eventually will receive the bid to be able to purchase the rights to be able to build that tanker truck for us. So that's a little bit on the fire end. We did have to hire someone to write a grant for us, and that's how we were able to receive the grant for this new tanker truck. We had tried several years prior to put grants in to receive money to get for different trucks, and even we've had grants written out there to try and receive ambulances, and we've not been successful in that area of grant, but they hired someone different to do a grant, and this guy has had very, very great success in getting grants that he writes for multiple departments. So that's a little bit of a rundown for the EMS for us. Currently, Hicksville does have 3 full-time EMTs. We just hired 2 part-time EMTs to help cover the weekends. And then we have some volunteers yet that still run from home. And we also have what we call EMRs, which they're a step under the emergency medical technicians. But they are required to take quite a few hours of schooling as well. But they allow us to at least have an extra person in the back end to help us with treatment of the patients. The state of Ohio requires that there must be 2 licensed EMTs in order to transport to the hospital. Now, because EMT shortages is getting more and more all the time, they have allowed an EMR and one EMT would be allowed to transport to the hospital. And that's why here about a year ago, we got about 5 people in the department. Some of them were firemen, and there was a couple of them that were just people from the general public, took the EMR training so that they could help out in the situation of being able to transport to the hospital. So that's a quick rundown of fire and EMS. Any questions out there? Anything that I can hopefully answer for you? Yes, ma'am.
I have 2 questions. One is better than the other. The worst one is, have you ever treated an animal? When you have time at a scene, if they've had an animal smoke inhalation or something, you see that on shows.
Well, yes, we have.
Have you?
Yes, I have. And personally, I probably have revived a couple of dogs in the past. I remember there was a time out at El Grande that there was a trailer fire out there. They bring this dog up here, you know, it's like, what can you guys do? And it's like, I'm just a dog lover. So, yes, we have. We've had dogs, we've had cats that if we can, we'll try and get some oxygen back into them. It's just the grace of God of whether you do or you don't. It's, you know.
My next question is specifically speaking to COVID, how has that affected your department? Like even with equipment, your thought process prior to responding to somebody who's got a breathing issue, what do you do to specifically prepare to go to somewhere that's got a breathing or a COVID possibility?
Okay. Wow, there's a lot to start with. As far as responding to COVID, our dispatchers somewhat screen our calls. And if they feel that it's a breathing related and they're answering some questions yes to COVID, they have a checklist that they go down through. So when we are toned out, they will tell us that we are responding for a medical emergency, for respiratory difficulty breathing, and they'll tell us that precautionary measures are needed. Our precautionary measures, a lot of it we were doing anyway. You know, we have masks, we have gloves. If we are going in for COVID, we will probably put those yellow gowns on that you see. That's probably the most additional that we have that we put on. As far as the equipment, when COVID first came, we had a small supply of stuff, but not enough. But within a short time, EMA was able to gather some stuff up for us. We contacted the hospital. They had a little bit of extra supplies of some masks and stuff for us. So far then, we have been blessed that after the COVID started for about a matter of about 3 weeks, people started turning in stuff that they weren't using. And I have to thank I thank the school back there. Once the school closed down, simple things as Clorox wipes, they were totally wiped off the shelves. If we tried to order medical supplies, all those supplies were wiped out. We were telling that there'd be a 4-week or 5-week delay. The school, when they closed down, some of the teachers brought us some of their Clorox wipes that they were using in their rooms from last school year. Great things like that. We probably had 3 or 4 people in the community that started to sew the mask. They started putting filters in them, removable filters, so that helped out in the community as well. Then as time went on, we were able to get the supplies that we need. Thankfully, we are a small community. Our COVID runs that we respond to are very minimal. So we probably, only have just a few runs a week. Maybe we'll go a couple weeks no runs, and then we'll have another run that precautionary reasons need to be taken. So we do have the supply for what we have here. If we were in a big city, no, we'd be way over our heads. So that's how we've been able to adapt for COVID, and we have gotten some supplies through Defiance County, and then the state funding has sent some of their stuff. So that's how we've been able to handle COVID. Do not think we do not have COVID in Hicksville, okay? We have a board, and on our our board, it tells us who in town is recuperating from COVID or who has tested positive for COVID. It's very important that we know that when we go out in the community. We don't want to be caught off guard going into a house unprepared for what is there. But even in this small community, Hicksville, we have had some cases of COVID. They have not been terribly serious, thank goodness. Most of them are doing the 14-day stay in the house, don't go anywhere, until they get past the 14 days. So even in the small community, yes, we are still affected with COVID. Any other questions out there? Anything I can answer? Attempt to answer?
I was gonna ask about, the drug issues in town, and the fentanyl, isn't the high potency drugs, and, I know a couple of years back, they were talking about the EpiPens that you'd have to sometimes use in drug overdoses.
Yep.
They were getting expensive, they're kind of hard to get. Has that kind of opened up a little bit with getting those kind of shots for either yourself and or victims, and how do you handle going into a situation where with a drug issue kind of thing, and I'm sure the police are protected of that too.
Yeah. The two questions there. Number one, the EpiPens. We as an EMS unit carry the EpiPens, and we have to use medical control in order to use those if it's someone that does not have an EpiPen or is not issued one. The EpiPens it's just like any other drug. When somebody can make a buck off of it, you darn betcha they're going to jack it up. Some people were not able to get EpiPens right away, and it was more due to the cost rather than the availability. Okay. As far as the drugs in town, like I said, that was one of the lists that I read over. All the medics here, we carry Narcan on our squads, and all the medics are able to administer Narcan. We have administered Narcan in this town of Hicksville many times. We hit a drug call if they have a past history of drugs, or if that person's standing there and saying, hey, I think he shot up with some heroin or some type of a drug, then we can administer our EpiPens right at the scene. We have a protocol that they have to meet in order to be able to give that drug, though. We do have cases that we have to administer the EpiPens, or not the EpiPens, but the Narcan. So Narcan is available. People can purchase Narcan in the pharmacy on their own and have it in their homes if they feel as though they really need it. I mean, it's been loosened up like that. Fentanyl is always a problem. Yet we carry fentanyl in our squad as a pain medication. So, it's used for a good thing, or people can abuse it. It can be used for a bad thing. So, yes, we do have a little bit of a drug problem in town. And sometimes it's, people bringing stuff in and out. Here lately, some of the drugs are being mixed with fentanyl, making them even more powerful. So that we just never know what we run into. Anything else? Other questions I can answer? Yes, sir.
I want to ask Elwood over there. I've been kind of bored lately. Can I drive the fire truck or something?
You talk to the chief.
Okay.
Speaking of that, I will put a plug out there. If you know people that would be willing to take the time and be on our fire department or EMS, we are to the point where we are needing both. We've even had a few people that have resigned off of our fire department. I know there's a few openings on the fire department that it's getting to the time that they do need to be filled. And that if anybody knows some younger guys, or even we've got a few gals that have been on the department, they are super. But the laws are changing. More training is always required, and that does put a lot of people in hesitation. It takes time to be an EMT. Firefighters now, if you join the department, I think you have about 1 year, and they're asking you to new stuff that's come along that the training is required. So after you're on for a few years, you are required to get your firefighter 1 training. And then there's that continuing education. Every year you have to do CEUs to keep that license up. So it's creating a little bit of a problem for a lot of small communities. It's not the volunteer fireman that does 36 hours anymore and just jumps on the truck and sprays water. It's becoming a very technical program and knowledge that they have, pump training, gallons per hour, pumping rates and things like this. There's a lot that goes on to the training that we have to do here in these small communities. And sometimes it hurts us a little bit because the people are working a full-time job and then you have to take this extra training to either be an EMT or a firefighter, and it takes up a lot of your time. And so it is getting out there. So there's a push now for our area that we can use both firemen, fire ladies, EMTs, male, female, doesn't make any difference. So, all right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Captain Denning, and thank you to both of your departments for all your service to the community.